Imagine you are completely alone. Not alone in your apartment with your phone nearby, not alone with the television on in the background. Truly alone. No other human being within reach. No voice, no notification, no signal that anyone else exists. How long before something starts to change? For most of human history, that question would have had no meaning. Humans were almost never truly alone. You were born into a group. You lived in a group. You slept in a group. The group was not a preference or a lifestyle choice. It was survival. Separation from the group meant exposure to predators, to cold, to hunger. Separation from the group, for most of human evolutionary history, meant death. Your brain was built inside that world, and it never fully left it. What happens to a human body when it is placed in genuine, prolonged isolation is one of the most disturbing findings in all of behavioral science. And the most disturbing part is not what happens after weeks or months. It is what happens in hours. Researcher John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago spent decades studying what he called the biology of loneliness. What he found was that the human body treats social isolation the same way it treats physical danger. Not metaphorically, literally. The same stress hormones, the same inflammatory responses, the same hypervigilance of the nervous system that fires when a predator is nearby, fires when a human being perceives that it is alone and unprotected. Your body does not distinguish between a lion in the grass and an empty room. Within hours of genuine isolation, cortisol levels begin to rise. Your nervous system shifts into a state of alert. Your brain starts scanning for threats more aggressively than usual, reading neutral faces as hostile, interpreting ambiguous situations as dangerous. Researchers call this hypervigilance to social threat. It is not paranoia. It is an ancient survival mechanism activating exactly as designed, in a context it was never designed for. Psychologist Matthew Lieberman at UCLA found that the human brain has a dedicated neural network for thinking about other people. He called it the default mode network. And what is remarkable about this network is what it does the moment your brain is not focused on a task. The moment your attention is free, your brain automatically shifts into thinking about other minds. What are other people doing? What are they thinking? How do you relate to them? This is not something you choose. It happens automatically, below the level of conscious thought. Your brain, when left to its own devices, defaults to other people. In isolation, that network has nowhere to go. It activates, searches, finds nothing, and the result is a specific kind of cognitive distress that feels different from other kinds of pain, but registers in the brain in a remarkably similar location. Cacioppo's research showed that loneliness activates the same neural regions as physical pain. Not similar regions, the same ones. The anterior cingulate cortex, which processes physical hurt, also processes social exclusion. When you feel cut off from other human beings, your brain is not generating an emotion. It is generating a pain signal. This is why loneliness feels the way it does. Heavy, aching, not quite like sadness and not quite like fear, but somehow containing both. It was designed to be unbearable, because an unbearable signal is one you cannot ignore. The pain of isolation was evolution's way of making sure you never stayed isolated long enough for it to kill you. Neuroscientist Stephanie Cacioppo, building on her late husband's work, found that the lonely brain is a fundamentally different brain from the socially connected one. It processes information differently. It remembers things differently. It makes decisions differently. Lonely people, her research found, show increased activity in the brain's threat detection regions even when processing neutral social information. A face that most people would read as blank, a lonely brain reads as threatening. Think about what that means for a moment. Isolation does not simply make you feel bad. It changes the lens through which you perceive every social interaction you have afterward. The very condition that makes you need other people more also makes it harder to trust them. It is a trap built into the architecture of the human nervous system, and it is one of the cruelest features of an otherwise extraordinarily well-designed machine. Studies of solitary confinement in prisons give us some of the clearest data on what happens when this trap is fully sprung. Within days, inmates in solitary begin experiencing perceptual disturbances, hypersensitivity to sound and light, difficulty concentrating, intrusive thoughts they cannot control. Within weeks, a significant percentage develop symptoms indistinguishable from serious psychiatric disorders, including hallucinations, paranoia, and severe dissociation. These are not people with pre-existing conditions. These are the predictable neurological consequences of removing something the human brain requires to function. Other people are not a luxury. They are infrastructure. Stuart Gracian, a psychiatrist at Harvard Medical School, studied inmates in solitary confinement and documented what he called the SHU syndrome, named after the special housing units where solitary is served. His findings showed a consistent pattern of cognitive deterioration, emotional dysregulation, and perceptual disturbance that appeared within days of isolation and resolved within days of return to social contact. The brain is not damaged by isolation in the way a muscle is torn. It is disrupted. Deprived of the input it was built to process. And here is where this becomes personal to you. You do not need to be in a prison cell to experience the physiological effects of social isolation. Researcher Julianne Holt-Lunstad at Brigham Young University conducted a landmark meta-analysis of studies covering more than 3 million people and found that social isolation and loneliness are associated with a 26 to 32% increased risk of early death, greater than the risk associated with obesity, greater than the risk associated with physical inactivity, comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness is not a feeling, it is a health condition, and modern life has created conditions of isolation that have no precedent in human evolutionary history. You can live in a city of 8 million people and go days without a single interaction that registers as genuinely connecting. You can be surrounded by noise and faces and voices and still trigger every alarm in your nervous system that signals you are alone and the group cannot protect you. The phone in your pocket does not resolve this. Cacioppo's research found that passive social media use, scrolling without genuine interaction, actually increases loneliness rather than reducing it. Because the brain that evolved to track real social bonds can tell the difference. It knows when it is looking at a screen and when it is looking at a face. It knows when a connection is real and when it is simulated. And it responds accordingly. So what does your body actually need? The research points consistently toward a few things. Physical presence, eye contact, touch, conversation that involves genuine disclosure and genuine listening, not performance, not broadcasting, actual contact between one nervous system and another. Cacioppo found that the quality of social connection matters more than the quantity. One genuine relationship is neurologically more powerful than 50 superficial ones. The nervous system is not counting friends. It is measuring safety. And it measures safety through depth, through consistency, through the felt experience of being known. Right now, your brain is not idle. Even as you take in this information, your default mode network is quietly active, tracking the invisible social world around you, measuring your place in it, deciding whether you are safe. For 99.9% of human history, that calculation was answered by the fire beside you, the breathing of others in the dark, the physical fact of the group. The question that evolution never had to answer is the one you are living with now. How do you tell a nervous system built for the ancient world that it is not alone when the ancient signals are gone?